And good afternoon, Hunterdon County. This is Tony Page coming to you on my own this afternoon. Joe Eggett is at home doing some other activities, and it's a rather wet afternoon here. We definitely need this rain, though, so hopefully it's going to be filling up some of our reservoirs. This afternoon, I'm joined by my colleague and broker, Mr. Chris Butler. Thank you very much for coming along.
As a buddy of mine used to say, I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah. And Chris, today we're going to cover quite a few topics. We're going to talk about house pricing, some of the towns, property taxes, schools, anything and everything. So if somebody is listening live, you're able to give us a call on 908-619-8656, and you'll get a response directly. If somebody's interested in talking to you, how should they get you?
The best way to track me down is either via email, which is cbutler@remax.net, or my cell, 908-285-0534.
Perfect. And if you can give a little bit of a background, because you're a lifelong New Jersey resident, and lots of others. So if you could just give a little...
Yeah, I'm a second-generation realtor. Grew up in real estate. My father sold for 35 years. Had his own agency for a while. Then he went to a couple of the bigger brokerage. But I've been doing this for 32 years now myself. And I like to tell everybody I started when I was 5. So if they want to do the math, they can figure out how old I am. But just thinking back when you were talking about introductions and that kind of stuff, I still think back to my very first job in real estate. And it was way back when I was in high school. I actually used to put up the posts and the signs for Century 21. They had an office at the time in Clinton in White House. And it was a great job for a high school kid. I used to go in Saturdays, and I still remember driving around my 1969 Chevy station wagon and filling up with gas, and every time I put gas in, I had to put a quart of oil in it. And I went out and bought a shale bar and a post hole digger, and I was in business. And I used to put them up and take them down. It was a neat way to learn all the back roads of Hunterdon and Warren County, which is where I pretty much still work today.
Yeah, you absolutely do. Now, you're also well-grounded with the community. You're involved quite heavily, or you were, with baseball. Are you still?
Well, actually, before I even got into real estate, I was always a lifelong baseball fan and played, and not very good. So I decided, well, maybe I'll try umpiring for a stint. And I went to umpiring school down in Florida, the Harry Wendelstadt School of Umpiring. And came back and did some local high school and college games and everything, and I realized I was a better fan than an umpire, so that ended that career. So.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize. Well, it's very tough. Everyone is an expert.
The old saying is that you have to be perfect the first day of umpiring, and you have to improve thereafter. So
a lot of high pressure. I can still remember when my son was playing baseball, and some of the other parents, it was crazy how carried they got away. But anyway. Well, any other items you'd like to talk about before we start?
And speaking along with the umpiring, I also ref soccer for 11 years through the DRC, which was the old Delaware River Conference, and I always enjoyed that. I always thought it was kind of a kick. You would get paid to exercise, and fortunately for me back then, none of the parents knew any of the rules, so they couldn't yell at the ref and everything because they didn't know what was going on. I was usually trying to educate them on. I still remember parents yelling at me, what was that? What was that signal for? And it's offsides. And
well, it's interesting too, because you've got the early kids that really are connected to the town rec groups here in Jersey, and then you've got the school system, and then you've also got some other travel teams, right?
Right. Well, that's still the same out here. At the time when my girls were growing up, I had 2 girls that went through the Stortsville system, Greenwich Township Rec, and I had coached there for I think 10 or 11 years, and it was just fun seeing them develop and going up with them, and even since when I started playing, it's just grown tremendously, the sport, and the improvement of the players too.
Absolutely, well, particularly with the women's team, and I think with some of these concussion issues, it's probably going to be
it's a lot tougher sport than people realize.
Oh, well, hitting the ball. You certainly come into contact
Yeah,
with a lot of
yeah.
other people too. So we've also been joined by our financial mortgage guru.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Mr. Manny
Mr.
Faranucci.
Butler, Mr. Page, how are we doing today?
We're
man.
very well. Pleased you got here in
Excellent.
one piece. We heard you were following the speed limits, though.
Oh, it's crazy
You know,
out there.
we
Weather.
appreciate that.
And the scary thing is I just looked at the radar,
Yeah.
and it's going to get a lot worse tonight.
Well, the wind is picking up, isn't it?
Yeah.
We used to
and
give weather reports, so I sort of just do the view one now because we used to be
it's
in
getting
a room.
bad out there. And
Is it?
so anyone traveling tonight needs to get home early because it's supposed to be really bad weather out there
Okay,
tonight.
should we
so.
go now then?
Hey, Tony, you're going to wrap up the show?
No.
All right.
Oh, you're here for the whole hour there.
You got some work to do. All right.
So.
Well, before we get into did you want to talk about the financial markets
Yeah, we'll
and
talk
what's
about the
going on?
markets real
I
quick.
saw they were up or down, and then they came back a
Well,
bit today.
that's
stocks.
the worst thing that affects mortgage rates, either going up or going down, is when you have a market going one direction in the morning and then another direction in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It definitely sets for a.
Sorry about that.
What's that? What's the area code? Because I gave someone the number to call in.
No, that one wasn't it.
Oh, okay.
424.
Anyway, the what it does is when you get that big change in the market, that's where you're going to see the adjustments in mortgage rates. This afternoon, we did get a price increase for rates to change in the afternoon
Really?
to go upward.
little bit,
Yeah,
okay.
they went up about a quarter point.
Okay.
Quarter point. So that's sort of what was going on today. But they're still, over the last 2-3 weeks, they've come down a lot.
Yeah,
They
so
have,
when I started in real estate in 1984 at 18%, we're okay still?
Yeah, so you did an adjustable rate, and you
Yeah.
probably got like 12 or 14%,
And
and
back-
you thought you got the world.
Well, and they were buying down too.
Right.
Yeah, taking the points and buying
Right.
down the mortgage.
But then back then, you also put money into your checking. Your savings account was earning 10% on it.
right. Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
that's the biggest issue. What do people do with their money now? And that's one of the things I was going to ask for your input on.
Well, that's why the stock market right now is overinflated, because what do you do with your money?
Well, take it
you-
out, I think, don't you?
Well, no. I'm saying if you were to take it out of the stock market, what do you do with it?
That's the point.
Right.
I think
It's
property
in the
is
stock market
viable.
right now because there is no other place to put that money.
Well, or otherwise you go into stocks that have dividends. We're not going off in
Right.
stocks.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know,
I hope not.
Yeah, as
But the
you're-
bond market right now is very weak.
Yeah, well,
and,
what do you get for bonds?
well,
next
that's
to
what I'm saying.
nothing.
You're not
Yeah.
getting anything on
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's good money. It's good secure money, but you're not going to get a lot on it. And that's why your favorite person, Janet Yellen, there is trying to raise the prime lending
Yeah.
rate. As that goes up, you're going to see bond prices start to go
Right.
up too. So,
Okay.
so that's where we're at now. But
Any other financial points?
no, but
Is,
it's still a
the-
great time to take advantage of the rates out there. You know, I've seen the purchase market seem to be picking up a little bit for the spring.
Oh, I think activity definitely is. We're going to
Yeah.
get to that. So,
gonna go over it,
your
but-
favorite department, CFPB, have they put the
Oof.
knot in that appendix that they?
Oof. You know, they. I know we're not supposed to make this a political show, and I generally like to be middle of the road. I don't like to go left or right. However, I watched a video today
Uh-oh.
of one of the leading Democratic candidate, and she talked about how she was in a town forum. Hispanic guy stands up and talks about how he did a mortgage, 24 years old, bought a home, and Hispanic guy, and he had to jump through hoops to get that mortgage.
How long ago?
Recently.
Just recent. So
Recently.
it's since
Right.
October.
And the candidate, she said, you know what? The bank made you jump through hoops because you're Hispanic. And every mortgage guy heard that saying, like, you got to be kidding. Like, well, you know, listen, it's a business. So what we care about is green. You know, we don't care if it's Hispanic. You know, even if you're a bigot, why would you do all that work
Right.
for the loan to go nowhere? You're not going to. You're not going to punch him because he's Hispanic. If you're going to do all that work, you're going to get the deal closed so you can get paid on it.
Right.
And, you know, the ironic part is they are jumping through hoops. It's not that, not Hispanic. Everybody's jumping through hoops now to do a mortgage because of the rules that Congress and Hillary
Yeah.
put in place that are making it so tough for mortgages. So it was just and I can send you that
Yeah.
video.
Well, it's really
Very
just
weird.
the criteria they've got to meet, right?
Well,
Yeah, you know,
there's a
for-
reason for it. What happens was back in 07, 08, when everybody and their brother was going into foreclosure, they turned around and they sued the banks and they said, you never should have gave me a mortgage, which was complete bull because that's not what made the housing market go down. Now people are underwater and they decided, well, I'm not going to make my payment. You know, granted, there were a lot of programs out there that shouldn't have been there, and there was a lot of people that didn't get that got mortgages that shouldn't have. But that's not what made the housing market collapse. So those people who did sue the bank saying you shouldn't have gave me a mortgage, you know what they did? They
Yeah.
won.
Yeah.
And not only did they win, now they didn't have to make their mortgage payments, and they kept to keep the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we beg to differ on who created some of the problem because those
I know.
collateral.
I know, but what's happening is, as a result, there's something called now a QM loan. A QM loan is if these clients jump through all these hoops and they meet all the criteria of a QM loan, they can never come back later, 5, 10 years down the road, and sue the bank because the bank documented everything in their blood type.
Right.
You know, and that's why they can never come back and sue the banks. And that's why banks have them jumping through, because the fear of being sued.
Right.
How do you see the pressure on the appraisers now? It
Yeah,
seems
well, the program they put in place was called the HVCC Home Value Code of Conduct. It used to be I used to be able to call my appraisers up and say, hey, I need you to go out to 123 Main Street, do the appraisal. Tony Page is the realtor, contact him. Now, no longer. Now we're not allowed to even have a phone conversation with an appraiser. You know, a friend of mine I went to high school with who was an appraiser, we go out to dinner, and, you know, the joke is, oh, he's going to call the CFPB on me because him and I are out to dinner. But you're really not even allowed to speak to them. I don't even know who the appraiser is going out. So the problem with that is no accountability. Appraisers can go out and do a half-ass job, and it doesn't matter because what do they care? They're going to get the business anyway because they're not getting it from. So they don't have to provide service. You know, the only thing I encourage realtors to do is have those comps in hand. You know, where did you get that sales price from? And how to be based on those comps. Have those same comps in hand when that realtor comes out. The other thing was years ago. I don't know if people realize this. It used to be an appraisal was done, comes in, banks looks at the value. The value's there. That was it. Now it goes through 5 different screening processes.
yeah.
And one of them is it goes to a website that's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and it's got to pass Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's computerized system, which is computerized. So,
Right.
you know, if it doesn't, there has to be another appraisal done or something else. They want to verify that the collateral is there.
Yeah, well, I know the biggest complaint a lot of the realtors have is, like you said, you know, the appraisers coming from out of the area that don't know the local market.
Correct.
And they're, you know, they're just pulling comps that are convenient to them and not.
And that's why I tell the realtors have
Yeah.
those comps in hands. What happens is when we order an appraisal, we'll go through a management company. They're called the AMCs. You order it, and they're supposed to go down the list. And the next appraiser on the list, that's who he's supposed to give that appraisal to. So if it's in Hunterdon County and he happens to be from Monmouth County, you're right, he isn't going to know the area.
Right.
Now, they do tweak them. Like they do only, you know, they'll go to a different list that has just Hunterdon County appraisers on it. But, you know, technically if they ever got caught, they can get fined for that. But that's what they're doing now, and it's a shame because all these rules and regulations and everything was put in place to protect the consumer, and they're doing just the opposite.
They're not. Yeah.
Well, I think that conservatism has really come in with appraisers too. No longer are they looking to go above because they actually do get to see
Right.
what the offers are.
Well, they see
and
you have to
that's
send
what
them
I
the sales
think is-
contract.
Yeah, but isn't that a little bit of a conflict of interest because the arm's length appraisal? I
Well-
personally think they should.
Well, what I've
You
done
know.
is I've had clients call me up and say, "Oh, you know, my contract was for $300,000. It came in right at $300,000. Why?"
That's what always happens.
And I said, "Well, you got to remember, the appraiser was hired by us
Right.
to protect our interest. Is the value there? Is that house worth $300,000?" And what he's letting us know is not the value of the house, but don't worry, bank, it's worth at least $300,000.
And client, you know, like with a VA loan, you know,
Right.
the former military person is protected because they're making
value
sure
is
that
there.
things are.
Right. The only one that they really go and give you an exact value is the USDA loans, because the USDA, the higher the value, you can roll closing costs in.
Right.
So they'll go out and they'll let you know. But other than that, they typically come in. They have like a little unwritten rule. If they come in at $1,000 over, it's letting you know that there's value in this home. But it's above and beyond.
Yeah,
You know, you're
and
getting a good
well,
value.
good thing you brought up USDA because 100% of Hunterdon County, except for where is it? It is 100%.
100%.
Yeah, there's.
100%.
I forget which one was.
No, it's 100% of Warren County except for
Phillipsburg.
Phillipsburg. That's
Right.
Yeah, I knew there was an exception.
Now, the only thing that's really scary is that I'm wearing a double-breasted blue jacket with a pink shirt, and Tony's wearing a
Wow.
double-breasted jacket with a pink shirt.
Apparently, you guys went to the same girls' school. Right?
Well, you've got a tie on too, but
Yeah,
enough
but
about us. Okay, let's get over to our main guest here now. So,
Who's
with
that?
we've gone through and spoken about some of the topics. Property taxes, though. You know, you were showing me, I didn't realize that article was in the Hunterdon Democrat. And from your point of view, how do you see property taxes, having lived all your life here, you know, some of the trends that are going on?
Well, it's kind of, and this was just in the Democrat just a couple of weeks ago, and I guess kind of annoys me that they always generalize, and you know, New Jersey taxes and New Jersey inventory and this and that. And if you look at the you know, basically that 78 corridor through the auto report, or and you know, doing any kind of research yourself on the MLS and everything, the market itself, as far as inventory, is fairly decent. I mean, it's certainly low, but you're seeing the movement on the housing market itself. The taxes, I've always found, and Manny can speak on this too, is you know, you have these. I'm from Hampton, and a small borough, and Glen Gardner, and Highbridge, and Bloomsbury. They just don't have the ratables, so they usually seem to get hit with the taxes. They're typically more or less a first-time home buyer's area, but then you add the taxes into the equation and everything, and it knocks a lot of them out.
Yeah,
That,
what people can afford. You know,
Right.
the biggest, you know, when people say, "Well, I want to buy a house more expensive," you got to find something with cheaper taxes.
Right.
That's going to make the biggest
To
impact
offset
on your
it.
payment. How much inventory is in Hunterdon County right now?
Right. Well,
I know it breaks down by town, right?
Yeah, it breaks down by town, but as far as the, we're actually off to a good start. I pulled up.
Now, ideally, you want to be at what, 4 months? Is that the number?
It was always 6
Lower
months.
is better.
Yeah. Well, it was always 6 months was the key.
And what we're talking about is the absorption rate.
Absorption
just
rate,
to
yeah.
be clear,
Right.
which is how quickly homes
Recently,
go off the market, sell.
recently the new kind of standard adjustment on it is 8 months.
Really?
So
Wow.
yeah, and I think a lot has to do just because there's such limited,
Distressed properties too, isn't there, that are still recycling through the system?
and the inventory is still low. So you got to. I think I saw for Hunterdon County to start off the year for January anyway. We're down to 6 months.
Okay.
And for all of last year, for the whole year was 7 months, and we stayed steady from 2013. Of course, it goes all the way back to 2011 when we were at 13 months worth of inventory
Yeah.
just in Hunterdon County. So
using that logic that it's dropped a month, that means that in theory the market's picking up.
the market's picking up.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Okay, is there any particular town that's better than another town?
Well, the Clinton, it was
Clinton was always-
Clinton Township was, and I think that a lot has to do with the commute. And I've also noticed too the fact that with the gas prices down, all of a sudden we had a pushback and a slowdown. A couple of years ago when the gas prices were so high, that was part of the equation. That not only your taxes and that, you say, well, how much is going to cost to
Right. Yeah.
commute and everything. Now doesn't seem to be brought up as much. So it's you don't see that
Wasn't
interfering.
that long ago? It was probably 2004, 2005. People were even
Yeah.
going as far as west as Warren County to.
Oh,
Or-
Pennsylvania. Don't
Yeah.
forget,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of people coming
Yeah.
through, and that's
Well, actually,
part of
back
the
in the
problem.
80s, it was the Poconos.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Well, there was
Yeah.
supposedly a train line going up there too at some
Right.
stage. But
Right.
well, just on property tax, because to kick it off in that direction, because that's a negative. And do you find many people are actually asking what the taxes are?
Eventually they get to it. I mean, that's
but it's not top of mind.
no. It's what can I afford?
Yeah.
Where's my commute, and
Right.
where can I get to the main roads and that kind of stuff, and what does the town have to offer? I mean, back when I
Exactly.
started selling, it
Yeah.
was the very first time I'd take anybody out was an area tour. You didn't even see any houses.
Right.
And so, what do you think of this neighbor? How do you like this? How do you feel? And then you kind of get an idea, and you get to know them and all that. Well, they do all that now. So
Right,
they're
right.
on the
Get to
internet.
you, yeah.
They have the access to the school reports. They have, and they basically come into us and say, I want to look at this area, this area, this area. And a lot of times they might even have houses already lined up that they want to see.
Yeah.
Right. Well, sometimes
well,
that's
the
the problem, that these people are too well
Yeah,
educated,
yeah.
and
But
and
is
they
it
think
a
they
problem?
know more.
Well, that's the problem. They think that they're not prepared to share what they know, so you can balance it up
Exactly,
with some
yeah,
of the
yeah.
other local.
Well, and that's building up the trust with them, which you
Yeah.
have to do anyway.
Yeah.
So they feel
Right.
at ease to let you in on
Know, like, and trust you.
what their
Because-
game plan is. Yeah.
Well, one of the things with property taxes, and like in Clinton Township, I think it's 79% is the Board of Ed something like that.
The schools are big.
Yeah, you know, so what about schools? Most of your people, do they?
Well, that's a lot of the reason why they're coming out, because you know the blue ribbon schools, the
Schools.
high schools around here
Yeah.
are fantastic. You got you know, North, Central, and Voorhees are all blue ribbon schools.
No,
Yeah.
You might correct me on the town because I'm not 100% sure on it, but isn't it like Bernardsville? Is that the town that has really low property taxes because they bust their kids out, or they've combined with other towns, and I think they have their own police department, but the schools, I think they shift the kids out,
yeah.
and the town and the taxes are unbelievably low, which leads back to consolidation. You know, like
And affordability.
yeah, no, like in our town, we now we combine courts or traffic court with the town next door
yeah.
to cover, you know, to keep the overhead down. Now there's only one prosecutor and one judge. I mean, is there a way, you know,
Well,
way to?
and that probably has a lot to do with to go with this article that we started talking about as far as the taxes. But it says, according to the this report that I think it was the Hunterdon Democrat maybe 2 weeks or so ago, we're referring to property taxes and the average tax bill in Hunterdon County, and actually Glen Gardner has the lowest per average taxes paid.
Really, Glen Gardner?
Yeah, but that's
Wow.
a
It's
a town.
Highbridge is the one that has the high tax.
Yes,
right?
well,
Tax rate.
Tax rate.
Tax
'cause
rate.
you've got
yeah.
to- yeah,
I'm
look
talking
at
about the actual tax bill,
taxes, yeah.
but
Right.
and that could be a lot to do with the with Glen Gardner,
Yeah.
you know, joining schools with
Right.
Clinton. So
Right, keeping that over it.
And what about the most expensive?
most
you know?
expensive, Tewksbury.
Yeah, which sort of makes sense
Mm-hmm.
because of the high
Yeah.
assessment values
Yeah.
and probable real estate values
Sure,
with
you know,
a slightly lower tax rate.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're-
but you know, in Hunterdon County is not like a high crime rate area. You start doing things like combining police departments and overhead and town administrations and
Right.
everything.
We
You
are
know,
extremely well policed all around the streets.
Yeah,
and,
I mean,
know.
a friend of mine is a policeman in that area, and he says, with the exception of domestic violence,
right.
you know, because he would have nothing to do, you know,
Yeah.
traffic accidents, stuff like that. But other than that, it's not like it's a high crime area, you know. So that's why I'm thinking, you know, just to cut the overhead down.
Well, in Warren County, Washington Township linked up with Oxford and the borough, Washington Borough. So all three police departments.
Right. So
However,
look at it as a thing. Does it
yeah.
work?
Well, that's the thing. And how long do you continue
well,
to look
and
at
there's
it?
always with that
Because-
there's always those growing pains, because I know
Yeah,
even out in
because-
Greenwich Township and Lopat have tried to join forces on different things that they just keep
Yeah.
on
Work.
Yeah.
They just keep on
Right.
going up
Yeah.
against each other.
Shared
Is
services.
Greenwich caught up with their property taxes? Because I know they had that special assessment come out.
Because of the school.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
Are they caught up and
Yes.
the taxes come back down?
Not yet,
They haven't
no.
come back down, but
Okay.
But they had to do it
they haven't
for more
gone
than
up
1 year.
as
Right.
high as they're.
Yeah, that was an omission. The same thing happened in Washington Township. Exactly the same.
Well, there
You
was a
wonder
lot.
Yes,
how-
yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm going back to 2005, 2006. There was a lot of people heading out that way to Warren County and everything. And then now some of them were coming. It's funny, the tax assessor out there did her mortgage, and it's in the middle of the transaction, her tax rate went up, and her husband was giving her hell about it. And she's like, "What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Our taxes were going up."
Well, Greenwich is one of the unique towns where there's a lot of newer building stock, or there was back
Well,
in that period.
and that
you know.
period, there was a time Greenwich Township was the fastest growing town in all of New Jersey. I mean, they
Right.
were just building like crazy out there.
And see, that's the difference. I don't know of much new construction. There is, you know, like you have pockets, but
Right.
nothing like it was.
Yeah, Bellevue Estates is the only really big thing going up, right?
Right. Yeah.
Now the kids from Greenwich go to Phillipsburg High School.
Phillipsburg. Yep.
When's the construction starting on that high
They,
school?
it's so
It's nearly
it's
finished
they
in this
they
year.
Oh, is it?
suspect that it's going to be it's huge. I went by there the
Right.
other day, and it's a beautiful building, and I don't even want to get into the pit for all the Phillipsburg people out
Right.
there that
Wrestlers.
yeah, all the wrestlers, and they've
Right.
got a bunch going to the regions this week. So wish them good luck. But
Absolutely.
they originally were supposed to open at the school, because I used to go to the meetings in 2005.
Right.
And I remember like 5 or 6 years ago, I said, could you come to this meeting? And I said, my girls are out. So,
Right.
I mean, there's, but
Well, there was
they're
a lot
they're
more
they're
included too.
they're planning. It's supposed to open up this coming September.
Okay, good.
So I don't know if they're going to meet that date or not, but they'll probably come pretty close.
And they have mostly like those temporary buildings over there, right?
Well, at
Yeah,
the old
some.
school, which will
Yeah.
become the middle school.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So they're actually the Phillipsburg High School is actually located in Lopac.
Well, one of the things, I'll put you on the spot. Do you think that the way in which New Jersey's residential market is taxed is appropriate? Because it's been historically what we're using. Pennsylvania has looked at some different alternatives, but with the school taxes being included in there, being such a big component. The other thing that I've always noticed is there's no encouragement there to keep your house looking as nice and updated as possible, because if you do, that wonderful person is going to come in and go, "You've done a beautiful job here. This is worth $100,000 more, and that's going to cost you." Yeah,
I actually remember a property that they asked me. It was a commercial property in Phillipsburg, and these folks went and did a beautiful job of fixing it up and everything. As a matter of fact, even the town gave them an award for most improved.
Yeah.
And the next thing that followed was their new tax bill.
Right.
Right. Well, how many listing appointments have you guys gone on and they didn't have permits for the finished basement
Right.
or
Yeah.
things because they didn't want to get reassessed?
Yes.
I get that question all the time. When we buy this house, it was assessed for $200,000. We're buying for $250,000. Is the town going to come in and reassess it?
Yeah.
Well,
And
Well, that's one of, besides is there an underground oil tank and an attorney review letter? The
Right.
second thing is, what improvements and did you have permits?
Right.
And that's even one of the questions that we asked the sellers to fill out on the seller disclosure. And they,
I can't remember.
yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big issue, though, even when you sell, because if the person is getting a lot more money than what they paid for it and it's assessed for, you can have considerably
Yeah.
more dollars being added to your tax bill.
Now, does that
And they're
typically
not-
do they typically come in reassess? Because the deal's already closed. So I don't know.
Well, it depends on the time.
Well, no,
frames,
and
but
majority of towns don't, because
Right.
a lot of
That's
them
what I
now
thought.
rely on the fact that a potential buyer is going to have a home inspection, so they don't need a CO. They just have the state certificate for smoke and carbon dioxide and
Right,
fire
right.
extinguisher. So a lot of them don't. But as I said, I haven't seen an attorney review letter with it without mentioning it. So it's got to be addressed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and I did have one in Greenwich Township when they had their own inspector at the time and everything, and there was a couple times he made people cut holes in their basement just to see the wiring and stuff like that, and not tear down
Right.
all walls and everything like that. But
Yeah. No,
to
I
make-
bought a house not that long ago where he rewired everything. Did a great job. Professional came and didn't get a permit. And I just happened to mention, listen, when you get a chance, I need that permit. And our town made him rip the entire
Everything
wall,
out.
Yeah.
wires out
Yeah.
and had to rewire it the same way. He couldn't do it a cheaper way because they wanted it done the high-end way he did it.
that he originally did it.
And pay for the permits and pay for the fine and everything else. And,
Yeah, and I think it all has to do with how upfront you are with them.
Yeah, and I understand. Listen, there is a reason to it. People think it's just a generate income. It's not. Permits are not really a income generating thing. It's not enough to impact the ratables in town. However, some of them are important.
Well, it also protects the interest of the potential, the seller too.
Yeah.
If down the road.
Well, the basement. Let's actually role play this, because I say to people, if it's not living space, or it's not living space if the roof hasn't been finished, right? So if you're down to the floor joists and you decide to spray it all black, you put trellis up there and you paint that black, but you do the walls.
Well, if you're adding electricity.
But it's not living space because you don't have a roof.
Yeah, but you
and
didn't-
I always say you
Is that
need
the
to
definition
check
of
on
living
that.
space if it has a roof?
Well, it needs to have all of it. Think about it.
No,
you
no,
know?
I know, but is
It's
that,
a finished, and so if you hold off, now they can tax you maybe on the improvements of the electrical, because that's what you have to put into the permit, right? How much
Right.
did the contractor get paid, and
Mhm.
all
No,
these
we
sorts of
were talking
things.
about appraisals before. Did you know that if you go outside and you look at the grade of the house, anything below grade, even if it's a master bedroom down there, does not count as living space on an appraisal.
Well, no, I did not. And
Even
see,
a
that's-
bank house.
Any house.
I mean,
When the
what,
appraiser goes out, if you have to walk out of that, when you come out of that basement, here's part of the problem: bilevels. Now, the way the guidelines are written for FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac is, even those bilevels, if they're below grade, when you come out of the house, if you have to step up, you can't even count them if there's bedrooms and everything under there. What's happened is, and I reached out to a friend of mine who's an appraiser and talked to him. He goes, that's the rules. That's the way it is in theory. In reality,
Yeah.
you know, on a
I
typical
haven't
buy
seen
level,
that.
we're going to count
By
the
level,
low
all of a sudden going to all be ranches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they only count the upper, the upper half of the buy level. However, you get a home that's not a buy level, and they've put all this money into the lower level, and you got to walk out and walk up.
Right.
Keeping in mind, if you're taking a listing, that because these people are going to say, "Well, I put all this
Yeah.
money into the
So,
basement."
Appraiser
it's-
calls it a homeowner improvement, right?
Right, but if it's below grade, in theory, you can't get value for it. So I don't think it's really going to be an issue with finished basements. It'll be more like if you're putting bedrooms and bathrooms
Right. Yeah.
below grade. They're really not supposed to even count that.
But
as-
I still wonder though, on a bank house where the front of it, you walk up and you're on ground level,
Right.
But the back of the house is basically underground.
Then yeah, you can't count
You
anything below
flip
ground.
a coin.
No, you go by the entire circle of the house. Anything that's below
Really?
grade does not count as living space. So keep that in mind when you're taking listings. You're telling people, listen, technically, I know you have a bedroom down there. It's a legal bedroom or a legal bath. We're really not supposed to count it. It's
Right.
not going to add value to the home. We're supposed
Okay.
to. We're going to count it, but you're not. It doesn't add value
And
to
that's
the home.
but the town will count it.
The town's going to count it, and they're going to tax you on it.
Yeah.
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 But in theory, it's not supposed to be on the appraisal. So.
Well, one of the other things I was going to ask you about is some of the towns that we have within the county of Hunterdon, and we have some pretty interesting ones, like Lebanon Borough here, still trying to rebuild and get the retail business back, and they're working with a number of issues, and some of which are self-made, in my opinion. They're not all specialists and experts, and they do their best, hopefully, but so some of the planning seems to me to be rather tough on individuals and also on businesses when you're trying to grow it. Have you seen anything in some of and don't mention towns or
Yeah, well,
you know,
I think it goes back to what Manny was originally saying. It's just, these smaller towns have to join forces just to help get the expenses down.
yeah.
And you're right. A lot of them were, kind of anti-commercial and depending on what it was and that kind of stuff. But it's tough to figure out how you're going to bring those tax ratables in and still keep it the nice
Right.
little,
Because some of these older
hometown USA
towns, they're really stuck.
Sure.
They don't have a lot of leeway because there's a lot of commercial space still available, so I don't think businesses are necessarily wanting to come in.
Right.
But then when they do, we have Mr. Joe Eggert coming in, so let's just pick up. Good afternoon, Mr. Eggert. Joe.
Yeah, I'd like to get on the air. I have a buy level. I want to talk to somebody about what you're just talking about.
Okay. Are you still there?
Well, whatever you think,
Yeah.
whatever you think it's worth, cut it in half.
That's what I can't hear you.
You can't hear us?
Okay, I hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. I've got the speaker
Am
on.
I on the air?
You are. Yeah.
Listen, I'm talking to that guy with that red sweater. Whatever his name is, Chris.
The
There you go.
good-looking
Okay,
guy.
there we go.
It's real easy.
Your
Right.
your future boss.
How are you, Joe?
Hey, everybody, you look good. I got to tell you, Chris, I love your red sweater.
I know. Well, that's what they told me I had to wear it since you weren't going to be here.
Oh, thank you very much. Hey, what happened? The radio, wait a minute, I just touched it. Now all of a sudden I'm getting a map. What happened? Are you guys putting a map up on
A
the
map,
screen?
we are. Yeah, we want to know where you are, Joe. Why aren't you here?
And then what's happening is the every topic we talk about, I'm watching the producer.
So you're
is
actually watching
bring it
this
up.
live?
Yeah, and he's good.
I am watching this
I am-
live. Right now I see a map of, looks like Clinton in the middle.
Beautiful. Yes. Well,
Yeah,
well
it's
that's
very
the sort
clear,
of
very nice.
production expertise we have.
Very
here.
nice production. Whoever you're, now we're back to you two guys.
Oh, okay.
Here,
That's
I
right.
see Uncle Tony and I see
Yeah.
that
So-
guy with the red sweater.
Monsieur,
You have a question, Joe?
No, I don't. I just wanted to say hello, and here we are. Mrs. Eggert just came in to say hello.
hello, Adele. How are you?
All right. Are you on the air? Wait a minute. Can we put you on? There we go. There we go. Now we got you on both. So, yes, I can. No, I see there's a delay. You guys have a delay, don't you?
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Well, in
Well,
case
that's
you're
because-
cursing, Joe.
That's because Manny's here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn the television and the computer off, Joe. Turn the volume down and just talk on the phone.
Oh, I see. There's a delay.
Yeah.
Is that my future boss? He wouldn't let me he wouldn't let me in the front door. He said.
No, he would.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So what we were talking about, you probably heard the property taxes. We're just
The
moving
argument
on.
about bi-levels is that a living downstairs.
And what's your view, Joe?
Let me shut this thing off here. I can't do both. I can't. Yeah. No, I'm just saying that you guys are talking about having a bi-level down and the ground floors is not considering living spaces. But
Well-
you and I both know the reality of it is that everybody does.
Well, it's not that it's ground level. It's if it's below the grade outside.
I can't. I've had a hard time hearing you.
Because you're not listening, or because
I'm listening, but I think somebody's talking with like an apple in her mouth. What is that?
Oh man, he's talking pretty loud here. I'm not sure
yeah.
why.
No, what I was saying, Joe, is it's not that you don't count it, and it doesn't add value. But if it's below grade, then it's not considered living space.
No,
From an
I know
appraisal
I know
point
the
of view.
conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, just my name just came up. Hey, I know the conversation, but it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, we all agreed with that.
All right, I just want to tell you that the production quality of tonight's show is very good, very clear. Good job. I don't know who's running the board. I'd probably venture to say it's Cousin Brucey.
It is.
Wow.
And,
Yeah, he is. Yes.
yeah, nice job though, and continue on with the show and
Good.
carry on.
You didn't have a special comment? We were talking about the Union Hotel.
Oh gosh, yeah, I read that
Yeah.
before.
So what's your view? Just
Very
quickly.
grandiose.
Grandiose, but
Very,
it's well
I mean,
integrated with like the RBCC.
It looks like the
and-
greatest thing since sliced bread.
okay.
And the time frame is amazing, like a couple years only. I find that extremely difficult to understand and believe.
Yeah. I
What are
think
they
that's
they're going to
because
reopen
they've-
it?
Well,
Redevelop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The whole
good.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you
So-
something. The Main Street Flemington can learn a lot from Main Street Clinton. You walk down Main Street Clinton. I mean, you're right there on Main Street Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
The traffic, even on cold days, forget about the warm days with the bands playing. And I think if you took this Main Street Flemington, developed it like Main Street Clinton, they can learn a lot from them.
Well, that's what we need to find out. As I've started to peel back the onion, there are many other underlying issues here. Business isn't necessarily able to just come into town. There's some hoops they have to jump through, and even the
Well, it should be just the
example-
opposite. The town should be helping them to bring businesses in
You would
and make
think
this
so.
downtown.
Yeah,
and
so I definitely want to have someone from.
Well,
we had Phil Villela on,
Right.
who was a former
It's a
councilman.
start.
and did-
It
yeah.
really, it's a start, and Flemington needs some kick in the butt, and I think it's a good thing. To be honest with you, but I hope it ain't a bill of goods or whatever.
Yeah.
I think the
All
only
right, guys,
difference.
carry on. I'm going to say goodbye. God
All right,
bless you.
Joe. Have a great
You-
night.
Take care,
Great
John.
night.
All right, bye-bye.
I think the only difference is the Main Street Flemington has a lot more traffic coming through it.
Yeah.
Where Main Street Clinton,
Oh,
you
yeah.
only really, but if you can get that type of atmosphere down here in Flemington, you could probably bring in
It's-
a lot of rateables.
Well, that's part of what this consultant proposed. He was talking about some pedestrian malls here and things, that
Right.
just finished his report a little while ago. But even that got political.
But
So,
even the other
know.
place, and I know it's not in Hunter County, is downtown Somerville. Downtown
Yeah.
Somerville on a Friday night.
Lambertville. You're
Lambertville,
missing out some
correct.
other spots here too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think is missing here in Flemington, and it's going to bring tax dollars in.
Right. Well, I know, at least like we're talking about Clinton and everything, the Clinton Guild is very active, and they have a great
Yeah, what's the name of the group there? It's like a Clinton Business Group. What's their name?
Clinton Guild.
Oh, is it? Is
Yeah,
that what
yeah,
it is?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where they have great participation from all the shop owners and like you said, that I had been out of the Clinton market for a couple of years and coming back in August, when we did and everything, just to be down there on a Friday night. It is jam packed.
Right.
My daughter came into town with her boyfriend and they wanted to go to the Clean Plate. It's a restaurant down by the river, and they had just gotten reviewed in the New York Times, got a very good,
Right.
and they told them it was an hour and a half wait.
Right.
They just
right.
wanted a slice of pizza, so
Right.
it's
No,
around
it's
the
a
corner,
lot of
but,
great stores. People are very pleasant. a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
I think it comes back to the demeanour of the town, though, that they actually embrace, and they'll engage with people. They won't necessarily agree, but Janice Kovac has been on our show here, and she also works with the other surrounding towns as well, very well. In fact, I think one of her police chiefs got some, I can't remember, high-speed chases, and they shared it, basically donated it to Reddington, because Clinton Town, they don't have a lot of high-speed chases. How wide's the town, you know? And I think
What do you mean a
that
high-speed
speaks volumes.
chase?
There's this device you can shoot into the back of the car, and it,
yeah.
it got transferred over there. I was trying to remember the details.
And you can
but
let the car go and everything like
Right.
that, but you track
it
it.
tracks it, yeah.
And then when they pull in or they pull off somewhere and everything, you're
So-
there in
so
30
you
seconds. So.
disengage from
Wow.
dangerous
So look on the
type,
back of your car,
yeah.
see if you have a little
Yes.
dart on
Is
there.
it something that actually hits the back of your car, or
Yeah.
it's just like sends a signal to the car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They actually shoot it out from like the underneath the headlights, I guess.
So I
You gotta
digress.
start watching the Today Show.
Well, I don't
man.
want them shooting anything at my car.
Yeah, but they actually had one, couldn't use it, and I mean that sort of approach. I think reasonableness and orderliness is necessary. you
I've
know.
already figured out how to beat the radios. They told me, well, you can't beat a radio. I drive faster than the radios. Now they're going to shoot
Yes,
things in
okay. Well, I hope no law enforcement are listening here. We both avoided getting a ticket there, but this is the other thing, and parking is very important around Clinton. We've often spoken about Transbridge, because the bus lines direct
Right.
into the Port Authorities there, but they also have several other municipal parks, and I've only had one ticket in 2 months.
It's
but
still early.
which
yeah,
was last week.
It's still early.
Which
but
was last week.
Yeah.
was it? I paid it last week. I think
Oh,
I got it
okay.
the week before, but and it's orderly. It's $25, and it's like a parking fee somewhere else. And you need to keep spaces available for shoppers, and
Right.
I have no problem
Right.
with that.
Well, and that's and they do have all day lots that are a nice little
Exactly.
brisk walk, which are fine.
And Lazy Page,
yeah.
But
Is there any other towns out that way that have like a main street? Like Flemington, we know we're right here, but is there any other towns that really have a main downtown?
Street, well, some of them, they've all slid backwards. I look at Three Bridges. I was talking to a lady that lives over there. Actually, I did a Reddington Township hike around Cushatunk. And it's nice. Julia Allen was actually on it. I'd say a shout out to her. And 33 people turned out on Sunday. Beautiful day. And you walk around, and they are using open space there. So,
Right.
you go down to White House Station. They have that street there.
Yeah, White House is a good open.
That's,
Main Street.
and that's could be bigger. They have tried to hold it down and manage it. There's several other towns, I think. Well, Three Bridges, like I was saying, because this lady was on it. She was crying over the fact they don't have any delis there anymore, and that town has slipped back more and more. Now, this train line suggestion coming through to the turntable here would
Open.
Right.
Three Bridges, and that's where you need the county involved, I think, as well, because how much can the town do on its own?
Oh, they can't. They can't build a rail line. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
Actually, even the
trying to
state or the
engage.
federal line.
Yeah, well, when John Higgins was on, both he and Janice Kovac have been lobbying in Trenton to come up with some better parking and other transportation options for their residents.
Right.
And it's taking a long time. And the speed of government and even municipal government can take a little bit longer. But, they've got a studied approach at it. And I think they have the general support of the towns, where you can have other towns where they go off and, because you brought up Highbridge before, and unfortunately, I think that golf course is a little bit of an albatross around their neck and weighs on taxes, and
Right.
maybe but things like that.
Yeah,
how
but
do
see,
you
a
get
town like Highbridge, they have a main street like Clinton that they really could develop that's off the beaten path. I mean, this main street here is really Main Street.
Right.
More
Right.
people drive down this road.
Yeah.
Clinton's main street is off the beaten path. You really,
Highbridge is even more Main Street,
But
because
that's-
that's 513. You come
Correct.
off 31, and
Yeah.
they have all the restaurants and things.
They had a nice little stretch there.
They do.
On Main
Yeah.
Street.
right. Well, they need to develop it and put,
Well, and as you said, just activities to bring people
'cause,
into town.
Even there's people looking for things to do.
Yeah.
What do you do on a Friday or Saturday night? You get to go to the movies, but it's nice. I go to Somerville on Friday night.
So you're not going to take me to a Yankee game now?
No, I got plenty of tickets.
All right.
But even still, you go to Yankee Stadium. That's not a cheap date.
That's
No.
You know what I mean? By the time even though I'm starting to learn the subway system to go to Yankee Stadium, but it's not. By the time you're done eating and everything else,
Oh, yeah.
that's why if you can provide something on these main streets, at least an avenue for something people do. Hey, what do you want to do tonight? Oh, let's go down to Main Street in Flemington.
Yeah.
Another way to get there, though, is New York waterways. You can take the ferry from Port Imperial, I'm assuming, or one of those.
Yeah, to
I-
the
I-
city.
No, to Yankee Stadium.
Stadium.
You can?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a different way.
I've
to
never
get
done
up.
it, but yeah,
neither have
I know
and
guys
that's
have
fine.
done
Wow,
it.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how convenient, but that's what I mean. Is when you look at transportation, don't just look at what you've got. The water was there a long time before, and remember out our way that we actually had all the canals, including down here.
Uh-huh.
And where does that bring you into Yankee Stadium then?
Just
On East River?
Bus, yeah.
Oh, you got to
Yeah.
get down there and take the bus. Yeah. Oh, okay. I know Joe brings it up. Joe Egger brings it up, but the guy who runs the New York Waterways, the head dispatcher there, it was Joe's client, my client. He's the one that when the plane landed in the Hudson River, he jumped on a ferry and was the first one out there
Yeah.
to
Help them.
yeah, Captain
offload.
Vin. He jumped on a boat. He used to be a captain. He still is a captain, but he's now like the head of dispatch or whatever. And he jumped on one of the ferries and went out to the boat.
pulled right up to the wing, huh?
Yep, and he
Wow.
actually did. And people jumped off and jumped out to his
Sully
boat.
Sullenberger, wasn't
He
it?
was
Yeah.
the pilot,
Yeah.
and Captain Vin was the pilot. No, Captain Vin was the pilot of the ship.
Ship, yeah.
Yeah.
The ferry went out. So
Yep. So
bringing it back now
Yep.
to some of the information you've brought along to share, the housing prices. I saw today that things are looking very rosy in one of the reports that I saw, but you look at another one, and this is at a national. And so what do
Yeah,
you
well,
see
and
going
actually, it's kind of interesting when are you still in the BNI?
yes, no, BNI, no.
I was in
Sorry.
a couple of years ago, and I used to do analysis of, and I used Greenwich Township in a particular development, Greenwich Chase, because there was plenty of
Right.
activity
Great,
there.
yes.
And back then, and this is only going back to 2012, we were at 2001 pricing. And within a year, we had gained 2 years of back market. Now, I'll do it again, but I haven't done that exercise in a while. But it's kind of interesting to see how the prices are creeping up, not going crazy, but at least the
One of the reports I got yesterday was New Jersey was up 6% over last
6%.
year, but that they take the whole state into it.
right.
Yeah,
and
Case Schiller, I think it's 5.7 something, says 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the same thing I had originally talked about. It's kind of tough to determine because all real estate is all local, and you have to do it per where you're looking at.
Yeah, because
Where
you go down the shore, homes have come up a lot. However, a lot of people that were looking for shore homes, now's the time to buy down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with Sandy coming through, did a lot of damage. Now's the time to buy. You do a finance a construction, and you could build that shore house that you've always wanted.
However, you can still have the FEMA insurance. Has that gone up that much? And to
yeah,
conform, you have to be X number of feet above,
yeah.
depending where you are, of course.
Yeah, but what happens is the closer you get to the shore, we have to estimate what people's insurance is. Average insurance, we'll say in Hunterdon County, and this is not with everyone, but the average is probably around $700 to $750 a year.
Right.
Down there, the closer you get to the shore, it could be anywhere. And this is not counting flood insurance; it's just regular homeowners insurance, $3,500 to $4,000.
Right.
Wow.
You get down into Florida, your homeowners insurance is more money than your taxes. There's a lot of
Yeah,
places
yeah,
down there.
uh-huh.
So it's and it's funny with the insurance, the flood insurance. What determines what your premium is actually how much money is in FEMA's account. Every
Yeah.
time a storm
Really?
blows, that's actually, and the floodplains too. One of the things people sign at closing is if all of a sudden your house is in a flood zone now, you need to carry flood insurance. Well, what determines how big a flood zone is how much money is in
Map.
FEMA's account.
Yeah.
The more money in the account, the smaller the floodplains. Something blows through like Katrina or Sandy, then all of a sudden they open up the floodplains to bring more money coming into the kitty.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's weird that that's what
They
controls it,
redraw
but
Yeah.
the lines, just like the political parties try
Yeah.
to redistribute.
right.
So with
Well,
house-
the other thing we're going to talk about is just the vacancy rate, and as far as the state, and we are leading in upcoming foreclosures. I guess we're number one. We finally made it to the top.
we
of the
have
list.
a few number ones that would like
yeah,
to
yeah,
disassociate
that. But
from,
looking at actually vacant homes, and I thought it was interesting in this article, and this was in the Star Ledger, I believe I got this out of. But they were talking about how they determine vacancy rate, and they use the post office.
Oh.
And the carriers that are delivering mail that nobody's there, that all of a sudden that becomes a vacancy. So
I hope
it's
they're charging for that, because the good old U.S. Postal Service gets maligned a lot.
Yeah.
But having spent time elsewhere around the world, very reliable. You know, I think it's great. You know, and they still deliver on a Saturday. Most
Well,
places.
actually, they're starting to deliver now on Sunday.
Well, yeah, with Amazon deliveries, I
Right.
think. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But if they're coming to your house with an Amazon, they have other stuff. They'll bring
that's-
it.
Yeah, I don't want to get off on, but the post offices always have their hands tied behind their backs, and what can they really do? You know.
Yeah, but so anyway, the vacancy rate right now, actually empty homes in Hunter County is just 0.8, and
Okay.
that's out of according to this, so there's a total of 43,852 homes in Hunter County, and 344 are empty according to the post office.
And those that are empty are pretty distressed. Like there's
Well,
mold in the basement, probably. There's
It's the old
Bed
analogy,
sep-
you
bed
know.
septic.
vacant homes.
You know,
septic. But still, that sounds high. 344 homes. Is a lot of
340
homes.
well, out of
I'd say
43,000,
Yeah.
and then Warren County is reaching up there. They're at 1.3%. They have 35,698 homes with 461 empty.
Yeah.
But you're right though. It's it's the old saying that houses are meant to be lived in, like boats are meant to be in the water.
Water,
So
yeah.
it's,
Right.
Yeah. So
Which is the worst county in the state? Camden,
I know it's not Salem,
Salem County,
Atlantic, Cumberland.
Atlantic. Yeah, Atlantic's got
Sussex.
Atlantic City in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of the South Jersey are in the top 10.
Right.
So as far as the affordability of housing at the moment, I think we're still in the good market there, wouldn't you say? You know, out our way, you can still have a great lifestyle with most people's earnings, like USDA.
Yeah.
You know, when
It's a
you
great
qualify,
product.
because what's the maximum you're allowed to earn? 70
It depends on the county. Hunter
County,
County
yeah.
is $100,400 is the total income.
total income for the family.
Correct.
And Warren
Warren County is $94,650.
Okay, so it's 100,000. That's why I was saying before. A lot of people could actually.
Well,
Good
and
point.
we had talked yesterday too. Just to give an example, a couple of years ago, I had somebody come into the office. They were renting a one-bedroom townhouse, and they were paying $1,200. And this is just a couple. They wanted more space, so they wanted a two-bedroom in the same complex, and they're going for about 14. And I said, well, have you ever thought about buying? And I think that's what every realtor should be discussing with a potential tenant. Said, why aren't you buying? And usually the number one excuse, well, I don't have any money. We
Right.
both have good jobs, but we just don't, haven't saved up any cash. And I said, and then after talking to the guy for a while, he was a vet. So you ever hear of a VA loan?
Right.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but what are they?
Oh, they're very turned off by them. And then
They-
when you tell them about it, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's a great product.
I wound up selling him a 3-bedroom, bath and a half with a partially finished basement in Alpha, and they were paying $900. They were paying less
Less than rent.
a 1-bedroom.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, yeah.
Yeah, you have an agent in your office, Nate. We had a deal close in December. They gave $1,000 good faith deposit. At closing, they got back $999.75. Essentially, they got into that house for a quarter
Wow.
Wow.
That's
as a USDA loan.
That's
So,
great.
and their payments were cheaper than what they were paying in rent.
which is amazing. Yeah.
So now they get the tax rate off everything else. So there's
Brilliant.
people out there take advantage of that product.
Okay, well, we're coming up to the last few minutes here, so any other comments that you'd like to make in terms of real estate trends, changes, things you'd like to see?
No, well, I just think it's like we're talking about. Home ownership is still the number one priority, and and couples, and it's just a matter of asking the questions. Can I afford, or what can I afford,
Right.
and reaching out to your local agent. But,
Yeah, well, the one thing is you really need to be in that home for how long do you typically think? Because if someone's not sure where...
well, and when we're talking about tenants and all that kind of stuff, somebody that's looking to only be here for 2 or 3 years or something like that, and they think might be transferred, or they're going to be moving out, it's probably not going to be worth their
Right.
They're wild.
Right, right.
That's why
So
there is.
approximately 5 years.
I
do
would think.
some-
You think 5 to 7
Yeah,
years, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, 5 or
And,
more.
and it's kind of funny because you always have the people. Oh, I'm only gonna live here 5 years, and then you talk to them 10 years later.
Later,
and
and
there's-
stuff, right.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Life happens,
and I
you know?
explain that to people that listen, when you look back when you're 18 to where you are now, is this what you planned to be? No. So you really can't. It's kind of hard to plan out 5 to 7 years from now what you're going to be doing.
Right.
Well,
But-
that's one of the things we touched on too when we were talking about renting versus buying is in towns where you have a higher percentage of rental properties, sometimes those homes aren't really looked after quite as well, are they?
Sure.
Would you agree? You know?
Absolutely. Especially if you have a absentee landlord.
Landlords.
Even when I work with investors, I recommend that they should be within 20 minutes, half an hour of the property, so you can keep an eye on it,
right.
and take care, as far as maintaining it.
Yeah.
I have one client of mine that she buys townhouses, condos, and fixes them up and rents them out, and she was using them for her kids' college education, and but she was they were all within 5-10 minutes of her house.
Right.
So she
Have
could
you
keep an
seen
eye
a
on them.
big uptick in investors buying
I-
properties?
I have seen a lot more out there and everything. I haven't personally been working with a lot of them. Yeah,
yeah.
but they're
And
Yeah,
some of these
I've seen a lot.
vehicles now.
Yeah.
I need to
I've seen a
find
lot
out
more
about-
investors buying now and people wanting to
So,
take
yeah.
advantage
Yeah.
of, because anytime you have a downturn, there's always someone that could take advantage of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
Well,
place
Chris-
to put your stock money, right?
Right.
I'd like to thank you very much
it's-
for coming in.
Time
if-
flies when you're having fun, right?
Yep. So how do listeners get in touch with you?
Again, my email is cbutler@remax.net, or my cell 908-285-0534.
Fantastic.
And down in downtown Clinton,
Downtown
stop
Clinton.
in Remax Supreme.
18
and
Main Street.
18 Main Street.
For the
Opposite-
old Hunter County people, it's the old Matthews clothing store where I used to get my suits.
And I think it was the dog groomers after
Uh,
that.
yes, it
wasn't
was, yeah, a
You know,
couple other
so
places.
It's across the street from Doors. So thanks, Hunterton, and have a great night.
Thanks, guys.
We're out.